Alrighty. Okay. Just wait a couple seconds. Okie dokie. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the 6th live webinar presentation of the 2022 Hidalgo County Employee Wellness Fair. I will be starting off this webinar with a sound check. If you can hear me clearly, please click the raised hand icon. Again, if you can hear me clearly, please click the raised hand icon. Perfect. Thank you so much. So before we get started, I would like to let everyone know that the attendees do not have a microphone feature on this webinar. If you have any questions, please utilize the chat box feature or the Q&A feature, and we will answer questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much. Our speaker is Dr. Audrey Gutierrez from South Texas Health Systems. Dr. Audrey Gutierrez provides compassionate care for newborns to older adults and provides an array of services such as annual checkups, diabetes, and hypertension management, and follow-up care after a hospital visit. She is board certified in family medicine and certified in advanced cardiac life support. A graduate of the University of Texas Medical Branch, Dr. Gutierrez was co-chief resident of the family medicine residency at Christus Santa Rosa Health System in San Antonio. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Gutierrez.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Okay, let me go ahead and stop share. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Audrey Gutierrez. Like Deanna was saying, I am a family doctor with South Texas Health System. So today's topic is extremely important. Something that I honestly talk about on a daily basis with many patients. And that's the importance of hydration. And then, of course, the risks that come when you become dehydrated or you don't have that sufficient water that your body needs. So,
if you can just share your screen. I don't think your screen is shared currently.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
See the share screen option at the bottom.
At the top, maybe. Sometimes it's hidden. There we go.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Good. Okay, so what is dehydration? So dehydration is basically when your body loses more water than it takes in, right? So, gaining water versus losing water. And the body has, different ways to maintain your hydration status. But normally we also see dehydration occur when about more than 2% of your bodily fluids are lost. Now, how do we lose fluid? How do we lose that on a daily basis or even when we're sick? So, any type of bleeding. So, females when they menstruate, or if someone has any GI problems such as bleeding through their GI system, that's a way that someone can become dehydrated. Of course, when you get sick, you get a stomach bug, you get a little bit of food poisoning, you have vomiting and diarrhea. That is, another way that someone can definitely become dehydrated, just because sometimes it's a little hard to keep up with the amount that you're losing when you're sick. Another way is through diuretics. So these are, medications that people take for blood pressure, for heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease. So making sure that, you know the medications and what it does. Third spacing is mainly seen when we have patients who have low amounts of protein in their blood. And that's people who, normally have like cirrhosis or scarring of the liver. And so the water, instead of being in your actual vessel, starts to seep out of the vessel and into what we call a third space. And then of course, just not hydrating, right? Or not drinking water on a regular basis. You can definitely become dehydrated. And then through sweating. So sweating is a very natural process for our body. We normally notice it more, of course, when we're outside, when it's hot, but everyone has a perspiration or loses fluid through their skin every day, no matter if you're inside, if you're outside. Now it depends. If you're outside, you're losing more. But that happens for everyone on a daily basis. And sweating is just the body's way of maintaining its temperature. So it's kind of a cooling off system. So how is water processed through our bodies? Well, of course, we drink it, right, on a regular basis. When we get sick or when you get very dehydrated, that's when we, have the IVs, and the IV goes in through that way. But for the most part, water is absorbed through the GI system. Once the water gets absorbed through there, the brain is the main organ that maintains the control of our water. So the brain on a daily basis senses, is my water low? Is my water high? And based off of that, it gives out certain signals to different organs. And one of those organs is the kidney. So, if the body senses that there is not enough fluid or water, then what it does is it sends a signal to the kidney and it says, hey, kidney, I need you to reserve as much water for the body right now as possible because, we don't have enough. And so, you'll see that, during these times of dehydration or just times where you don't have enough water, you won't go to the restroom, as frequently as if you were hydrating. And so that's the one of the body's mechanisms for protecting itself, for trying to maintain your water balance. Now, of course, there are many other signals that it sends out, but that's the main one that occurs. So why is water important? So water is very important for a lot of different reasons. But the main thing is that, we're made up of mostly water. So, when we don't have that balance, our body is just not going to function at its highest level, at its highest capacity. So, I mean, these are just a couple of things, and we'll definitely go into more detail in the next couple of slides. But I mean, it helps digestion, it helps prevent constipation. Water is made out of two molecules, oxygen and hydrogen. And so these molecules get broken down and help, carry oxygen. It helps nutrients, in the cells. And so it helps on a daily basis with metabolic processes. It helps, get rid of waste in the body, which is extremely important. Of course, it stabilizes blood pressure, and then it supports healthy joints. So some common causes of dehydration, like I had mentioned earlier, was this dehydration, the bleeding, the vomiting, diarrhea, third spacing, sweating, and low water intake. Okay, so these next two slides, we're gonna kind of stay here for a bit and discuss each one of these in detail. So, when we see people that come in and they're tired, or they say they're dizzy every now and then, or they have fast heart rate, dehydration is one of the main things that we think about when these symptoms come up. And honestly, even though we have plenty of access to water here in the United States. Um, as Americans, we don't drink enough water. We don't do it, many patients that I see, they reach for a tea, a soda, something other than water. And, it has to become a habit. If you didn't grow up drinking water, then, it has to be something that you need to start slowly on a daily basis. I get a lot of patients who say, I just don't like the way that water tastes. And I say, okay, well, we need to change that, because water is so essential. In the younger years, your body is functioning well, but as you get older, you need as much support as you can to help your body function at its best. And water is definitely one of those things, to help the body do that. And so very, very important. Water is very, very important. So as far as the dizziness, why do you get dizzy when you are dehydrated? Well, a lot of the times it's because your blood pressure can actually be low or high, depending on, medications you take, depending on age. So that dizziness can come from, just having the low blood pressure, which means that your brain is not supplied with the right amount of pressure. So that's where that dizziness can come in. Fatigue. So like I mentioned, water facilitates many, many different things in the body, including, the nutrition, the oxygen. And so if we're dehydrated, right, if we don't have enough water and those different things in the body are not happening, that's not going to help us with our energy, and it's going to make us feel fatigued and sluggish. Confusion, that's more when you're pretty severely dehydrated, and that's normally one of the symptoms that we see more in the hospital, that we tend to hydrate more with IV fluids, and things like that. Something else that I see on a frequent basis is muscle cramping. So muscle cramping, especially in the legs. And so what's happening is your muscles depend on water to work. So muscles depend on potassium, calcium, but again, water is made out of these two molecules. So if this is not facilitating these functions of the muscle, you can definitely start to see that you have muscle cramping. Now, at the same time, when people are dehydrated, we can also see that their electrolytes, so that's your potassium, your sodium, your chloride, can also be abnormal. And because these are other things that also help the muscle work, that also can play into this muscle cramping that people have when they're dehydrated. So low blood pressure. So like I mentioned earlier, we have our vessels, and I would compare our vessels to a hose. So when we have enough pressure, there's enough water, right? It's like you have a good stream of water coming out of the hose or in the hose. But when we don't have enough water, you can think about when the water hose gets very, very little, there's not a lot of pressure to maintain those vessels, right? Or the hose that we're talking about. So what happens is that when there's low pressure, the body defends itself. It says, okay, I have low pressure because I don't have enough water in my arteries or my hose. So what do I need to do to make sure that I maintain my pressure? So that's when it starts to increase your heart rate to try to get more of that water to circulate through our system. And eventually, it tries to compensate and get your blood pressure back to normal. And then headaches. Headaches, I know we see headaches every day. And, sometimes it's not related to hydration, but a lot of the times it is. So as far as headaches go, there's a couple of different things that we think happen when it comes to headaches. So, our brain sits in, spinal fluid, cerebral spinal fluid. And, when we're not hydrated, we think that part of the reason for the headaches is that this fluid, there's just not enough of it, right? So the brain, it doesn't like change. It likes to be in a very balanced environment. And so when it senses changes in this environment, we can see that people start getting these headaches. And then those can, eventually get to migraines, depending if you have history of migraines or kind of susceptible to migraines, and things like that. But something that we commonly see in the office. Okay, so more symptoms of dehydration. Again, constipation. I see this every day in the clinic. So our GI system, what happens is we eat, and it goes through our stomach, and then it goes to our small intestines, and the small intestine breaks down that food. It breaks it down, and then our large intestine then absorbs fluid or water back in. However, when our body senses that we don't have enough fluid, it takes any type of fluid that it can from that food that we've eaten, and it pulls it into the body. So what happens is that because that water is being pulled from the food that has been, broken down and digested, that becomes hard. And so that's why we see these hard stools or hard poops, is because the body is trying to protect itself. It's trying to maintain that water balance. And that is one of the ways that it does that. So if you're seeing that you have hard stools, it's probably one of the reasons is probably because you're not drinking enough water. And I mean, again, there are many, many things that cause constipation outside of dehydration or, lack of hydration. But it is very, very, very common for us to see, in kids, in adults, in elderly. So you need the water. You need water to not be constipated. Now, depression. This is, kind of an interesting one. So it honestly kind of goes along with fatigue. So when we're feeling fatigued, when we're just not feeling ourselves, our mood can change, right? And what's really interesting is that the brain requires the most water to work at its max capacity. It requires about 85% water to function. So, our brain is such a complex organ. It does so many things, to regulate our body. And, one of the things in the brain, of course, is regulating mood. And so if the brain does not have enough energy to try to regulate, the mood hormones, the serotonin, the norepinephrine, that can definitely kind of put you in this mood and maybe even depression. So again, very, very important. Water is important. One of the ways that is an easy way to kind of tell, am I hydrated? Am I not hydrated? Is checking the color of your urine. So if you're going to the restroom and you see that your urine is dark yellow in the toilet, you have to think about there's already water in the toilet, right? So if you already see it super dark there, that means it's even darker if we just take a look at it up close. So you really want to see that your urine is a very, very light yellow, and a very, very light yellow in the toilet as well. Because what's happening is, again, the brain is sensing I don't have enough water, and it's telling the kidneys, you need to, reserve as much water for the body right now. So what it happens is that it concentrates the urine. So there's less water in the urine, more water that's getting absorbed back to the body. And so that's why we see this very, very dark colored urine, is because it's just concentrated. And so that's why we want to see a light colored urine. That means that we are, or should mean that we're hydrating appropriately. So another thing that you can check, is my mouth, is my mouth dry? Like, do I have a dry mouth? Do I have cracked lips? Do I have dry lips? Do I have dry skin? Do I have skin that when I pinch it, it stays exactly where it's at? So that's called turgor. So, if you get your skin, you pinch it and it stays, right? That means that your skin does not have enough water to maintain the moisture, to maintain that turgor. And so those are, some, again, everyday signs that you can monitor yourself to see, am I hydrated? Something, also interesting is bad breath. Sometimes we don't think about, saliva. Saliva, we need water to create saliva. And so if we don't have the right amount of saliva, saliva is actually a protectant factor for cavities and bacteria in our mouth. And so if we don't have the right amount of saliva, we can see, that you have more bad breath. You're getting more cavities than you did before. So something, again, important. And then I feel like this last one is all of them are very important, but especially right now in America that we have an obesity crisis, this is one that is extremely important as well. So when we're dehydrated, sometimes you get sudden urges of hunger or food cravings. And, a lot of the times we're like, okay, well, we're hungry, we need to eat. But we need to take a step back and say, hey, when's the last time I ate? Did I eat enough? Because if we say yes, we just ate an hour ago, we need to say, am I really thirsty? Because sometimes what happens is that the body kind of confuses hunger and thirst. And so when it comes to these sudden hunger urges, when the liver doesn't have enough water, it doesn't create certain proteins to tell our body that we're full. And that's why we can get these sudden hunger cravings when we're dehydrated, when we just don't have enough water to maintain that. Now, another thing too is, sometimes even when you're dehydrated, your body can crave salt, which is bad because that leads us to the chips, unhealthy things. And so you really need to pay attention, is this thirst? Is this hunger? Have I drinking enough water today? Have I not drinking enough water today? And that in itself, if you're hydrating, if you're not having those sudden hunger cravings, those food cravings, that can definitely help when it comes to weight, maintaining weight or weight loss. Okay. And then just some signs for babies and children. So, they can't communicate to us like adults can. So, are their eyes sunken in? Do they have a dry mouth? Do they have a dry tongue? Are they not having the appropriate, wet diapers that they normally would have? Are they being more irritable for some reason? They've eaten, they slept, so those are some things that you can look for as far as babies and children. Okay, so more serious complications when it comes to dehydration. So urinary and kidney problems. And when I say that, that includes kidney stones. So again, when the urine becomes more concentrated, we have minerals that are in there. And if it's concentrated over and over and over, that's when those kidney stones can start to build up. Okay. More severe kidney problems, of course, include, chronic kidney disease, renal failure, because, the kidneys try to balance the water based off of these hormones that get sent by the brain, but that can only happen for so long. And so if they get stressed out for that long of a period of time, we can see that the kidneys are stop functioning, the way that they should be. Gallstones, kind of the same thing. We have bile ducts within our liver. And if our liver is not receiving the right amount of water, that bile starts to get concentrated. And that's when we can see these gallstones pop up. Now, seizures, again, we normally don't really see seizures unless like someone's in the hospital very dehydrated. Sometimes we can see it out in athletes, who are not hydrating appropriately in hot weather. But again, that's just, the brain saying, I can't function because I don't have enough water to function the way I need to. Loss of consciousness, same thing. And then, of course, something that's, very, very severe is heat exhaustion, heat stroke. And then we can even see where people go into shock because they have just very, very little fluid to maintain their blood pressure, to maintain their heart, maintain their kidneys. And so, they start to have malfunction of the heart, kidneys, and, that's what we call going into this shock, which again, we normally don't see unless you are very, very, very severely dehydrated. Okay. So tips to stay hydrated. So one of the older recommendations was to, drink 8 glasses of 8 ounces every single day. So that's, 64 ounces of water in a day. But honestly, everyone should be drinking a different amount of water based off of their weight. And so you want to drink at least about half to 1 ounce of water every day based off of your body weight. So if you weigh 140 pounds, you want to at least be drinking 70 ounces of water every day. Now, honestly, it's best to drink more, right? That's just the minimum that we would recommend. So, drinking about a gallon, if you're about 140 pounds. But then the other thing that you need to consider is, am I working out? For every 30 minutes that you work out, you should add on 12 ounces of water. And so, just based off of these two things, again, most Americans are not hydrating the way that they need to be. One of the things that I talk about a lot is, have a glass of water before you eat your meal. Of course, we want you drinking water during your meal and then in between your meals as well. But have a glass of water before you eat. Again, this is going to help you stay full. This is going to help you not overeat. And then, for my patients who tell me, Doc, I don't like the way that water tastes. I say, okay, well, infuse it. So, you can get frozen fruit at the store. You get a big, container of water, put the frozen fruit in overnight. And by the next morning, it has a really good fruity flavor. Now, there are a lot of, things like the sparkling water that's, 0 calories. Those are also things that, that you can incorporate into your water schedule. So it's not just water all the time. Something that's become kind of popular too is those jugs that say, that have like motivational lines like, okay, you just started, you can do this. Halfway there. So always carrying a water jug or something with water with you to kind of remind you, oh, okay, I need to drink water. And then something important is, patients ask, well, can I drink too much water? And it's very rare that someone can drink too much water. Now, we don't want you drinking a whole gallon in 1 hour. We don't want you doing that. We want you drinking maybe, 20, 30 ounces, every hour, or during the day, but max about 20 to 30 ounces in about an hour. That way, the body can function things, you won't be, well, you probably will be going pee more often because you're hydrating and your body's having to get used to that. So yeah, just making sure you're not just chugging a whole bunch of water at one time. We want to space it out throughout the day. Something else that is important when it comes to water is, fruits and vegetables have water in them. So, fruits and veggies have fiber, they have good nutrition. There's a lot of different reasons why we need fruit and vegetables on a daily basis. But water is another thing. So foods that have a good water sources like your melons, your watermelons, strawberries, pineapples, celery, apples, broccoli, bell peppers, so cucumbers. So all of these are important to incorporate into the diet, not only for nutrition, but also for that water content. And then, definitely thinking about your climate, your temperature, right? If you're going to be outside for a long time, if you're going to go to the beach, if you're going to go to the park, take water with you. You need to be hydrating when you're out there, when you're sweating, because again, you're losing water, right? When you're sweating. And so, very, very important to understand, if I normally drink this amount of water and I'm sweating more than I normally do, if I'm outside for longer periods of time than I normally am, I need to increase my water intake for that day. And that is all for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Gutierrez. So we're going to go ahead and open it up for a Q&A. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, we already have a couple questions coming in as well. So, okay. So one question that we had, and it was actually kind of a two-parter, but what are your thoughts on like liquid IV packs, or is it harmful to drink those like electrolyte beverages on a regular basis?
So it shouldn't be a problem to drink those electrolyte replacements on a regular basis. Now, if you're not, out there sweating every day, if you're not the one that's working out every day, there shouldn't be a reason why you need those electrolytes.
Mhm.
Now, the other thing I also warn patients about when it comes to any type of electrolyte replacement is how much sugar are in those things. So, Gatorade is a really big electrolyte, replacement brand. But if you take a look at Gatorade, it has a whole bunch of sugar in it. And so, if you're drinking these things and you're not really losing those electrolytes, you're not out there, burning off a whole bunch of calories to have that sugar replaced. That's what I caution patients on.
Okay, gotcha. What about coffee? Is coffee something that dehydrates us? Also, somebody asked about coconut water, if that was also a good way to hydrate.
Okay, so coffee definitely is a diuretic. It's a natural
Mhm.
diuretic. Now, coffee is good for you in multiple ways. So, having 1 cup of black coffee a day can actually be good for the body. You just need to make sure, you're not doing like 4 or 5 cups of coffee because that will definitely dehydrate you.
Okay.
Teas can also dehydrate you.
Mhm.
So, in moderation, about one cup. I would say max 2 in a
Mhm.
day is fine, but you do need to make sure that you are drinking water throughout the day.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect.
Oh, and coconut water.
Oh yeah, coconut water.
I honestly, I haven't done any research on coconut water, but I do believe it's just the water that comes from the coconut. So it's
Correct. Yeah.
pretty much like what we talked about with the foods, right? If
Mhm.
if the water is coming from the foods, then that should be a good source of
Mhm.
water.
Okay, perfect. Unless, of course, it has any like added sugars or anything like that,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
gotcha. Somebody asked, what's the daily water intake for children and adolescents? Would it be the same weight rule that you mentioned?
Yeah, I would say it's weight based. Now it's a little bit different for like newborns and infants, because of course, we want them, that's their main source of nutrition is,
Mhm.
if they're using formula, it's that distilled water. So that's a little bit different. When we get to like maybe like your adolescence, or maybe like in your probably like maybe 4 to 10 age range. I think that would be a good generalized way to see how much water they need.
Mhm.
Now, of course, if they're active, if they're outside, they definitely need to up that amount of water intake. And then also just kind of seeing, are they constipated? Do they have dry mouths? Are they thirsty? Those are all cues that they're not drinking enough water, but you can try using that formula. And if all those things are good, they should definitely be good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Um, Somebody asked, well, I know that you mentioned like with tea and lemonade to really just watch out for the sugar content there. But what about oh, it went away, sorry. Oh, what about like those zero drinks, like the zero sugar, zero calorie drinks that we have? I guess they make those Gatorade versions as well. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So, normally when it comes to like the zero Gatorades, better, it's better than Gatorade. But normally the way that they get to the zero sugar drink is that they're using other artificial um, products.
Mhm.
Um, and so anytime we introduce artificial products into our body, I don't recommend it on a routine basis, but if that's something that you want to do every now and then, that's completely fine. Water is going to be your best way to hydrate, right?
Mhm. Of course.
But yes, definitely a Gatorade Zero is better than a regular Gatorade.
Mhm.
You just have to understand that the way they get to this zero sugar is by having these alternative sugar or alternative chemicals.
Right. Okay. Somebody did mention alkaline water. Is that
Uh-huh.
something that you have knowledge on? I feel like I was asked that question yesterday during one of our roundtable discussions, and I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know much about alkaline or water.
Yes, yes. So I don't discourage alkaline water.
Mhm.
So basically the science behind that is um, just like our body wants to maintain a water balance, our body also wants to maintain what's called an acid base uh, balance. And
Mhm.
so acidity just basically means like acid, right? And
Right.
then alkaline means basic or the opposite of acid. And so we do know that when the body overall becomes more acidic, we start to see more inflammatory diseases. We can see diabetes, we can see liver disease, we can see autoimmune diseases in this acidic state. And so the whole thing about the alkaline is that when we're in an alkaline state, our body tends to function better. There's not as much there's not as much inflammatory processes going on, and so things function
Mhm.
well. So I do not discourage alkaline water. It's something that you can definitely try because it can try to help with this more alkaline basic environment that we're trying to introduce into the body.
Mhm.
Same thing for foods. So you have acidic foods and you have alkaline foods. If you eat more alkaline foods, it's kind of like an anti-inflammatory diet. I mean, these are all your good things, right? Your green veggies, your bell peppers, your tomatoes, your fruits. So I don't discourage it. And, that's kind of where that alkaline science comes from.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you explained it with the pH and everything, because I was like, well, I know that because we're not supposed to necessarily be at a 7, right, as humans, which is like the middle.
Yeah, so we definitely want to be on the higher end of things. We don't want to be on the
Right.
acidic side. Now, where we want to be, I honestly, I cannot remember the pH that we're supposed to
Yeah.
be at. But basically on the higher side of things.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. And then we'll just do one last question. Somebody asked, what is a healthy water percentage that you should maintain in your body? I guess, like, is there a way to measure, where we are, like, dehydrate or like hydration wise? And is there a specific number that we should meet?
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely want to stay at about 60%. And
Okay.
that's just total, right? We talked about how the brain needs more, it needs 85%. But overall, about 60%. I honestly cannot um, think of something, besides probably doing a whole bunch of math with a whole bunch of lab
Yeah.
work that could calculate, the total water. Probably,
Right.
some kidney doctors can do that.
Yeah.
But just in general, that 60%. I do know that there are things like the in-body, which kind of
Right. Oh, yeah, that
get
gives us the
the
water.
muscle and the fat. I don't know if water is included in there or
It
not.
is, yes, actually, through the wellness program, all of our employees can come and get in-body scans done.
Oh,
And
okay.
we can give our employees, it does say, it does give you like your body water, and it can tell us. And I know, just for clarification as well, that body water level, drinking, let's say it's a little low. If you drink water the next day, it's not going to automatically change, right? It's something that does take
Over time.
over time, right? Okay.
Definitely over time.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, you could definitely try that
Hmm.
to see.
Okay.
I honestly, yeah, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Gutierrez. This was a really informative presentation, and we definitely really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to speak with our employees and everything. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. This concludes our 6th webinar of the 2022 Hidalgo County Employee Wellness Fair. Be sure to check out the rest of our online platform or join us in person at the Precinct 2 Indoor Sports Complex in FAR. If you have any questions, message us through our chat feature or email us at hidalgocounty.wellness@co.hidalgo.tx.us. Thank you, and we'll see you all very soon. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Gutierrez.
you.